I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. It started at the coffee shop on Maple, the kind of place where the tables are too close together and the baristas all pretend they don't notice when you stay longer than you should. I usually came in late afternoons, headphones in, pretending to study while scrolling through the same 3 apps. She always came in around the same time. I noticed her before she ever looked at me. A woman in her 40s, maybe mid-40s, with that quiet kind of presence that makes people shift out of her way without realizing it. She didn't dress loud. She didn't need to. Just jeans, a cardigan, hair tied up in a loose knot. But there was something in the way she moved, like every step was considered. The first time she spoke to me, it was about the weather. That was all. She said something about how the rain came earlier than expected, and I half laughed, nodded, said, "Yeah, that was it." But when I came back the next day, she looked up from her book and said, "You again," like she'd been expecting me. She remembered I always ordered black coffee. She remembered I never finished it. She remembered more than I thought anyone noticed. I didn't say much back. I wasn't good at that. I would fold the napkin into smaller and smaller squares, line them up on the table, just to keep my hands busy. She'd watch sometimes, this half smile at the corner of her mouth, like she wanted to say something but let it stay unsaid. The attraction wasn't loud. It was in the pauses, the way her eyes would linger a fraction too long before going back to her book. The way she'd ask me a question and then actually wait for the answer. That doesn't happen often. Most people ask and move on before you can finish. But she didn't. I told myself it was nothing, just an older neighborly type being kind. I told myself I was imagining the warmth in her voice when she said my name. But I'd catch myself checking my phone before bed, half expecting a message that couldn't possibly come. One afternoon, she slid into the chair across from me without asking, just set her mug down and said, "You never finish your coffee. Why order it?" I blinked, laughed under my breath. Habit, I guess. Not a good one. She stirred her drink, metal spoon tapping too loud in the quiet cafe. I wanted to ask her things about her book, about her day, about her, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I glanced at her hands, noticed a thin silver band she wasn't wearing the week before. My eyes flicked back up too quickly, hoping she hadn't noticed. She leaned back, studying me. "You think too much," she said. I shrugged. Probably. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Not exactly. More like standing too close to a window in winter, the glass cold, but the light warm. She checked her phone, thumb brushing the screen. Then she looked at me again, serious this time. "You're here tomorrow?" It wasn't really a question. I nodded. She smiled. Not the polite one she used on strangers, but something smaller, more private. She gathered her things, stood up, and left without looking back. I sat there long after, staring at the napkin I'd folded into a perfect square. My coffee had gone cold again, and then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 5 words. "Don't tell anyone about this." I told myself not to go back the next day. I even tried, stayed home, walked around my room, picked up my phone, put it down again. But by 4 o'clock, I was at the cafe, sitting at the same corner table, pretending it wasn't on purpose. She walked in 10 minutes later. No book this time, just her bag and a paper cup. She saw me, hesitated for half a second, then came over. "You again," she said, a little lighter this time. "Habit," I replied. She sat down without asking. We didn't talk much at first. She tore the sleeve off her cup and folded it flat on the table. I caught myself watching her hands. She noticed. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." I looked away too quickly. For a while it was just the hum of the espresso machine, the clatter of plates. Then she said, almost out of nowhere, "I used to come here with my husband." I didn't know what to say to that. The word husband sat heavy in the space between us. She didn't wear a ring now, and I didn't ask why. She went on, softer. "We'd sit by the window. Same corner, every Saturday." I nodded, not sure if she was telling me or herself. Something about the way she said it made me want to fill the silence. But nothing seemed right. So I just let it stay. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. She sipped her tea and glanced at me, like she knew. "You're too young to be this quiet," she said. "Maybe I just don't have much to say. Everyone has something." Her eyes stayed on me, steady, waiting. And I don't know why, but I told her. "My mom calls every Sunday night. I let it ring most weeks. Don't even know why. She doesn't stop trying." She didn't flinch, didn't pity me, just nodded, like she understood something I hadn't said out loud. That was the first time it felt dangerous. Not because of anything obvious, but because she listened, really listened, and I wanted her to keep doing it. We left the cafe together. Outside, the air was damp, the pavement still slick from rain. She carried her umbrella closed at her side, not bothering to use it. I walked slower than usual, matching her pace. At the corner, she stopped. "I live just down there." She tilted her head toward the street. I nodded, suddenly too aware of the space between us. She smiled, faint but warm. "You should finish your coffee next time. Don't waste it." I almost laughed, but it came out as more of a breath. "I'll try." Then, quick, casual, like it meant nothing. She touched my arm before turning away, just her fingertips against my sleeve. But I felt it long after she was gone. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time, it wasn't the cafe. I was walking home when I saw her car parked crooked in front of her place. Hood up. She was leaning against it, arms folded, staring at the engine like it had betrayed her. "You know anything about cars?" she asked when I came closer. "Not really." She laughed, short and dry. "Neither do I." I stood there anyway. She didn't ask me to leave. Instead, she brushed a strand of hair from her face, streak of oil across her wrist, and I caught myself wanting to wipe it away. Too much, too fast. We ended up in her kitchen waiting for a tow truck. The place smelled faintly of lemons and old books. She set a mug of tea in front of me. I didn't drink it right away, just wrapped my hands around the cup, feeling the heat. "You don't usually come over here," she said. "Didn't know if I should." She looked at me, unreadable. Probably wise. Silence stretched. I tried to focus on the ticking clock above the stove, but my eyes kept slipping back to her. The way she leaned against the counter, the quiet exhaustion in her shoulders. Then the interruption. A knock at the door. She froze. I froze. It was just her neighbor, a woman carrying mail delivered to the wrong box. They exchanged a few words, polite, practiced. But when the door shut again, the air between us felt heavier. "You see," she said softly, almost to herself, "someone's always watching." I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that I didn't care who noticed, but the words caught, tangled in my throat. Instead, I took a sip of the tea. Too hot, burned my tongue. She smiled faintly like she knew. For a while, neither of us moved. I fiddled with the handle of the mug, turning it back and forth. She tapped her fingers against the counter, rhythm uneven. You should, she started, then stopped. What? She shook her head. Nothing. I hated that word. Nothing. It was always more than it sounded. When the tow truck finally called, she walked me to the door. I should have just left. But I lingered there, one hand on the frame, the other gripping my jacket too tight. Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. I couldn't tell if she wanted me closer or further away. I stepped in just slightly, close enough to see the faint lines at the corner of her eyes, close enough to smell the lemon soap on her hands. For a second, neither of us breathed. My hand almost lifted, almost touched her face. Her lips parted, not in words, just in breath. Then she pulled back. Just enough. Good night, she said, voice low. The word landed like a door shutting. I walked away, heart hammering. But every step, I felt her almost touch still on my skin. It wasn't planned. We just ended up walking the same way after the cafe closed early. Evening light stretched long across the pavement, that orange glow where everything looks softer than it should. She carried her bag over one shoulder, steps slower than usual. I matched her pace without meaning to. Long day? I asked. She gave a small laugh. They're all long. We walked a block without speaking. My hands kept finding my pockets, then leaving them, restless. She didn't look at me, but I could feel her noticing. At the park, she stopped near a bench, sat down. I hesitated, then sat too, leaving a careful space between us. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and someone's barbecue drifting from a nearby yard. You know what I hate? She said suddenly. What? People thinking they know me. Her voice tightened, like they've already decided who I am, before I even open my mouth. I didn't answer right away. I just watched her hands twisting the strap of her bag. She looked younger in that moment, though not really, more like something unguarded slipped through. They don't know you, I said quietly. She glanced at me then, sharp, almost searching. And you do. The question hung there, too heavy. I wanted to say yes, wanted to list the little things. How she always stirred her drink twice, how she looked out windows longer than anyone else, how she never let her tea get cold. But the words stayed locked in my chest. Instead, I said, I notice things. Her lips curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. Dangerous habit. Silence stretched again, broken only by the buzz of a street lamp flickering on above us. She leaned back against the bench, exhaled slow. You're 20, aren't you? 21. Still. She shook her head, eyes fixed on the ground. You should be out with someone your own. She cut herself off, bit her lip. I stared at her profile, the way her jaw tightened like she was fighting herself. Maybe I don't want someone my own age, I said before I could stop it. She turned to me then, full on, eyes locking with mine, nothing in the way. My heart kicked hard, too loud in my ears. Don't say things like that, she whispered. But she didn't move. Neither of us did. The space between us felt alive, buzzing, like if I leaned an inch closer the whole world would tilt. I swallowed hard, tried to find something light to say, but all that came out was, "What are we doing?" Her breath caught. She didn't answer. And that silence, that was the loudest thing of all. The next few days, she wasn't there. No cafe, no walk, not even her car in the driveway when I passed by. I told myself I didn't notice, but my legs kept carrying me past her street anyway. On the fourth day, she showed up again. Same cafe, same corner table, but different. She didn't look up when I walked in. Didn't wave me over like she always did. Just kept staring at her cup. Stirring and stirring though the spoon had nothing left to dissolve. I sat anyway, across from her. "Hey," I said. She nodded, eyes still on the coffee. "Hey." It was strange, how one word could sound like a door shutting. I tried again. "Everything okay?" She laughed, but it wasn't humor. More like air catching wrong in her throat. "Fine. Just busy." Silence stretched. I folded the napkin into a triangle, then a smaller one, then smaller still. She didn't watch this time. She was somewhere else. Finally she said, "My daughter's back in town." I blinked. "I didn't know you had a daughter." "College." Her hand trembled slightly on the spoon. She doesn't need to see me sitting here every day with." She stopped, bit the inside of her cheek. "With me," I finished. She didn't answer. Didn't have to. Something shifted then, sharp and invisible. Like a thread snapping but still hanging loose between us. We sat a while longer, both pretending to read the chalkboard menu, the headlines on abandoned newspapers. Nothing stuck. My chest felt tight, like I was holding a question I wasn't allowed to ask. When she finally stood, she didn't touch my arm. Didn't linger. Just gathered her bag, said, "Take care. Okay?" and walked out. The seat across from me stayed warm for a minute after. Then it cooled, and the cafe felt suddenly too big, too loud. I stayed long enough for my coffee to go cold again. Tried to type a message on my phone. Was it something I did? But I erased it before sending. Outside, the rain had started again. I stood under the awning, watching it streak the glass, wondering if she was looking out a window at the same rain, or if she was already somewhere else, forgetting I was ever part of her day. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. That night, I stared at her number in my phone, typed another message. "I'll stay away if you want. Just tell me." But I didn't hit send. I just set the phone face down and let the silence decide for me. I didn't plan to see her again. Not after that last time. But one evening, walking home, I noticed the light on in her kitchen. Curtains half drawn. Steam rising from a pot on the stove. I stopped. Stood there on the sidewalk too long, debating whether to keep walking. Then the door opened. "You're just going to stand out there?" she asked, voice carrying into the night. I swallowed. Didn't want to intrude. "You already have." A pause. "Come in." Her kitchen smelled of garlic and something simmering. She moved quietly, rinsing a spoon at the sink, avoiding my eyes. I sat at the table, fingers tracing the wood grain. Finally, she turned. "You shouldn't be here." "I know. But you are." I nodded. My chest felt tight, like words were caught there, fighting to get out. She set the spoon down. "You're too young. I'm too everything else." I tried to smile, but it came out weak. "You don't have to explain. I get it." Her hands gripped the counter, knuckles white. "No, you don't. You don't know what people would say. You don't know what it would cost me." I looked at her then, really looked. The weight in her shoulders, the flicker in her eyes. She wasn't pushing me away because she wanted to. She was pushing me away because she thought she had to. "I don't care what they'd say," I said quietly. She shook her head. "You will. Someday. When it's too late." Silence. Just the hum of the fridge, the faint bubbling of the pot. I thought about leaving, about sparing her the trouble. But instead I said, almost without meaning to, "You make me feel seen." Her breath caught. She turned slowly, eyes softening like something inside her had cracked. "No one said that to me in years," she whispered. We stood there, two people in a kitchen too small for everything between us. I moved first, but not far. Just leaned forward enough that our hands brushed on the table. Barely a touch, but enough to spark something undeniable. She didn't pull back. For a moment, it felt like the whole world narrowed to that point of contact. Her hand, mine, the silence holding us still. Her lips parted, like she might say something more. But instead, she gave the smallest nod. Not a yes, not a promise. Just an okay. And somehow that was enough. Weeks passed. Not dramatic ones. Just the kind where days fold into each other. Work, errands, empty evenings. I went to the cafe less. She stopped going altogether. But then one morning, too early for habit, I found myself there anyway. 8:47 a.m. The seat by the window was empty. My coffee sat untouched, cooling as always. And then she walked in. Not with the same presence as before. Softer, almost hesitant. She spotted me, paused, then came over without asking. Set her tea on the table, sat down across from me. "You're early," she said. "You're late," I answered. That earned the faintest smile. We didn't rush to fill the silence. We just sat, listening to the scrape of chairs, the hiss of the espresso machine. Her hands wrapped around the teacup. My napkin was folded once, then twice. She watched me do it. Finally, she said, "I thought it would be easier to stop." I looked at her, steady. "Was it?" She shook her head. No, something in me loosened at that. Not relief exactly. Just the quiet knowing that I wasn't alone in this. After that, things weren't sudden. They weren't dramatic. They were steady. Walks that ended on the same park bench. Afternoons where she read and I sat beside her, saying almost nothing. Dinners where she cooked too much and sent me home with leftovers. Little pieces of a life that didn't need to be explained to anyone else. There were still complications, whispers, glances, the weight of what it looked like from the outside. But inside her kitchen, over tea and black coffee, none of that mattered. One night, months later, we were sitting at that same bench, street lamp buzzing overhead. She leaned her head back, eyes closed, breathing deep. "You know," she murmured, "I don't even like tea that much. It just feels right to hold something warm." I laughed under my breath. "Then why keep ordering it?" Her eyes opened, turned to me. "Habit, I guess." And in that moment, it felt like everything had come full circle. The coffee, the folded napkins, the unsent texts, the silences that used to hurt. Now they just lived with us, like old furniture you stop noticing but can't imagine moving. It wasn't a perfect story, but it was ours. I don't know when it shifted, when the ache turned into comfort, when the risk stopped feeling like falling. Maybe at 8:47 that morning, maybe at the kitchen table months before. All I know is, when she smiled that quiet smile, the one that belonged only to me, I finally understood. Some things don't need to be said. They just need to be held. Engagement close. YouTube, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?